Good afternoon. In my early life, no one would have ever described me as a risk taker. Adjectives that were used to describe me were typically shy, timid, overly cautious, pensive, serious, studious. I could never have imagined myself speaking in front of 5 individuals, let alone 400 individuals. And I applaud all of the students who have spoken here today because you are indeed risk takers and you are far ahead of where I was when I was your age. So today I'm going to talk with you about embracing risk. You've heard a lot about that in the earlier sessions. Not just living with risk, not just tolerating risk, but really, truly embracing risk. We asked the undergraduate business students the definition of risk. What did it mean to them? And you see the responses before you. They range from negative in terms of danger, loss, threat, volatility, to perhaps neutral, which is what risk is, which is uncertainty, to positive, reward, opportunity. Hopefully, by the end of this afternoon, you will truly view risk as an opportunity, and an opportunity to have an impact, to make a difference. The most important risks that we can take are those that result in improvement, not just of us, not just of ourselves, of our own lives, but that result in the improvement of the lives of others. Those are the truly important and impactful risks that we should take. So I'm going to go through some principles, borrowing principles from my field, the field of statistics, and bringing them into everyday life. Principle 1. Never ignore risk. It exists, it's always there, and ignoring it will not be helpful. I'm going to go through an economics example, which is familiar to all of you, to illustrate the dangers of ignoring risks. We all remember, or at least were around during the housing bubble of the 1990s. Housing prices increased nearly 100% from 1996 to 2006. The middle class had 65% of their wealth invested in their homes. Savings reduced by 14% from 2001 to 2006. As the prices of homes increased, individuals saw this as an ATM. They saw it as a bank, a personal bank account. Why not? So they started spending their equity. They started getting second mortgages. Economists were busy building these precise models, but they ignored the risk of defaulting on mortgages. They ignored the risk of subprime mortgages, and they ignored the fact that defaults on mortgages were not independently related. As one person defaulted, that impacted the likelihood of another individual or another business also defaulting. So as we all know, the ignoring of the risk in the economy, in the whole banking structure, the positive feedback loop and the conflict of interest with the rating agencies and mortgage-backed securities, ignoring all that resulted in the dramatic consequences of the collapse of the economy. Now you might say, well, perhaps this was a unique situation, perhaps for the US, but we live in a global economy. And if you in fact look at what happened in Japan in the late 1980s, early 1990s, almost the identical situation. The rise of a housing bubble followed by a dramatic economic collapse. But the economists ignored it. We all know what happened. Global GDP plummeted. Not just in developed nations, but of course worldwide, and of course in emerging nations as well. Principle 2, view risk through your own lens. We all bring something different to the table. We all have different skills, different strengths, different characteristics, and therefore, we all have a different measure of risk. Understand what your own risk is, what you're capable of, and what you're not capable of. If we go back to the economic crisis, not all nations in the EU are the same, as we now know. If you look at the unemployment in Spain, in Greece, in Italy, and Portugal, you'll see that it far outpaced that of the other EU nations. This is what is largely responsible for the EU crisis today. Digging deeper, since everyone is different and unique, let's dig deeper into the different EU nations. If we look at unemployment by age group, if you as students today were living in Italy, Spain, Greece, Portugal, unemployment is upward of 40% and reached a peak of over 50% in some of those nations. It's now plateaued off in the last year. So it's important when we examine risk that we really look at our own characteristics and the risk in the different situations that apply to us as individuals. Principle 3, be flexible. We live in a dynamic, constantly changing global economy. So get used to it. Embrace it. Rather than react to it, let's try to predict it. Let's take advantage of it. I'm going to switch from the economy to weather. We all know a recent example. The weather forecasters tried to predict the path of Hurricane Joaquin. On October 1st, most of the models predicted that the hurricane would hit the eastern seaboard. Actually, the reason that that cone of uncertainty or the confidence interval is so large is that there was one European model that actually predicted it going out to sea. Now, I have suspicions on why the European model predicted it going out to sea, and all of the US models were being rather conservative in case it hit the eastern seaboard and weighing their variables differently. But nonetheless, October 1st, people were starting to panic on the eastern seaboard. And these are four-dimensional models: latitude, longitude, height above sea level, and time, because, as I said, everything is dynamic. We all know what happened. October 4th, 3 days later, all of the models were now in line predicting that Hurricane Joaquin would indeed head out to sea. Life is unpredictable. That's okay. Get used to the uncertainty. Embrace it. I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to focus on professional risk. Professional risk that hopefully has resulted in positive improvements at Georgetown, for you, for all of you. Positive results in the Georgetown curriculum. Now, we've probably launched about a dozen new initiatives and programs in the last 6.5 years. I'm only going to touch on a few. I'm going to touch on a few of the programs that resulted from interesting and innovative collaborations with the Beck Center for Innovation and the School of Foreign Service. I'm also going to focus on the innovations that look at the intersection of global learning, service learning, real-time learning, and experiential learning. Because just as life or weather or the economy is not standing still, neither is education. Education is constantly changing, moving, evolving. It's dynamic. And it's important that at Georgetown that we stay on top of those changes and those movements and those trends. You are the best, the brightest, the most talented students. You deserve the best education. You deserve the most transformative education that challenges you, that pushes you to the limits. And that's what we're here for. And that's why I said, at least from my perspective, that the most impactful risk you can take are the risks that improve the lives of others. So in the last 6.5 years, my sole focus has been on improving what a Georgetown education means for you. So I'm going to share, hopefully, through the eyes of some students and photographs of some student experiences, what we've been able to create. The first is a unique program in global entrepreneurship in Barcelona. It's a 5-week summer program started 5 years ago. We have now seen almost 200 students go through this program. 6-credit program where the students earn Georgetown credits as well as visiting entrepreneurs and trying to start their own companies in the EU. We also launched a new global consulting program where students consult with multinational firms. We launched this just a year ago. This year we'll be adding a second module. In addition to Barcelona, they'll be going to Brussels. The year after that, we'll be launching a 3rd and 4th module, hopefully in Sao Paulo and Hong Kong. Because only by actually working with those out in the field, out in business, out in the industry, solving real challenges, can students begin to understand how to apply what they're learning in the classroom. Our latest venture this past summer was launching a new 5-week program in Hong Kong in multicultural perspectives and strategic planning with an Asian perspective. Now, in all these programs, I am blessed and fortunate enough to have an amazing team of individuals. Because another important thing about meeting risks, embracing risks, you don't have to do it alone. That's the beauty of it. You can do it with peers, you can do it with mentors, with coaches, with advisors, with colleagues, with faculty, with partners, with an entire team of individuals. And I'm fortunate enough to be at Georgetown where we have amazing teams that enable progress like this to take place. A program that I'm particularly proud of that we have created along with the team at the Beck Center is our new Global Social Internship Program. We started in Nicaragua 3 years ago with 4 students. This past summer, we sent 12 students to Nicaragua to work with youth to improve their health and education outside Managua. We also sent students to Peru who are working with charter schools. And then with the Beck Center, we also provided scholarships to send a student to Mumbai, India, a student to Costa Rica, and a student to Shanghai to donate their time and their skills because they're fortunate enough to be educated at an institution such as Georgetown to help those who don't have the privileges that we have, that you have. So we hope to continue to work with the Beck Center and grow this program over time. This is just about a quarter of the new cohort in the latest program we launched in January, which is a joint program with the School of Foreign Service called the Global Business Fellows. And again, we hope to grow this program over time. Many of the students were studying abroad, which is a requirement of the program. These students will go through as a cohort and take a series of courses in business, international affairs, economics, and language, because we do live in an interdisciplinary world, and these are all important. It's also important and critical to understand other cultures and to speak other languages. This is the first ever program that crosses schools at Georgetown. Surprising, right? Seems like this would have happened a long time ago. But outside of the business minor we offer for the college, schools have not been known to collaborate, to build bridges and work across the aisle. We hope that we can do more of this with all the schools at Georgetown, and we hope that we can grow programs like this with the Walsh School of Foreign Service. This I just had to show you because it was too cute, but also because, as many of my students will tell you, despite creating about a dozen new curricular and co-curricular programs for the purpose of creating and providing a transformational education for our students, the one program that I'm probably most well known for is Bagels with the Deed, where we provide juice, coffee, and bagels to over 300 students every Thursday morning. And we often have unannounced visitors, such as Jack the Bulldog, at one recent Bagels. So this is what I would like to leave with you. Don't ignore risk. And that often means admitting what you don't know. And if you don't know the answer, find out. Talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues, I'm constantly asking people for help. Constantly, because there's a lot I still don't know. Risk is easier to face with a partner. If you're starting a startup, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you may not know everything you need to know to get that company off the ground. So ask someone, ask for help. Each of the programs I created were actually mini startups. Had to create partnerships with deans at international institutions, had to create a budget, and yes, had to go raise capital, had to go raise the money. Every single one of these programs is supported by external funding. Today's investors are savvy. They're not going to just give you money for you to go start your own company. They want to know that you're capable. They want to know that your project is feasible and that it's fundable. They also want to know that your project or your firm or your idea is sustainable and scalable. You have to prove all of that to your investors in order to fund your idea. And it's incredibly exciting to go from a brainstorm on the back of an envelope to actually implementing the idea. And that's what each one of these programs has been. They all started out with words in a discussion. They were an idea. And the rest, as has been said many times today, was just a lot of hard work and a lot of research and a lot of reaching across the aisle, talking to others, and having an amazing team. Understand you are unique. Each one of you brings a specific set of skills and strengths, and yes, probably also weaknesses, probably blind spots, and challenges. And as soon as you understand what your strengths are and what your challenges are, then the sooner you can figure out how to move forward. So embrace change. Don't just live with it. Don't just tolerate it. Excel. Use the change for positive energy, and that will yield positive outcomes. Be fearless. Thank you, and good afternoon.